It's time to share, there's a world out there, looking for a friend like Jesus. It's time to share, there's a world out there, let's tell him that he loves us so. Let's tell him that he loves us so. Kids time, kids time, kids time.
Hi, boys and girls. Look what I brought with me today. This is a strange looking thing, isn't it? Can you take a closer look and see if you can guess what it is? You can see, I can see some leaves out of here. And I think I'm going to give you a little bit of hint here. This is somebody's house. But whose house could it be? Look at all, there's layers and layers, and it's kind of flaky. And in fact, the little critter that made this house, he takes his saliva and he mixes it with tree bark, and he just keeps layering, and it takes a lot of these little critters to make this home. And in fact, take a look over here. That's the entrance right there. Have you guessed who lives here? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's someone that you wouldn't want to hang around with for very long. Any guesses who it might be yet? Well, some friends of mine found a house like this in their tent trailer once, and when they had opened it up at the end of a year, and you know what? They all screamed and ran away. Have you figured out who lives in this house yet? All right, you guessed it. It's a hornet's nest, and nobody wants hornets for neighbors, do they? This hornet's nest reminds me of a story in the Bible about a boy who was possessed by demons. Now, demons are evil angels, and living with them can be kind of like living in a hornet's nest. Now, of course, you can't just march up to a hornet's nest and tell them to fly away, hornets, and they will. They're likely to chase you back into your house. But do you know when Jesus commands demons to fly away? That's exactly what they have to do. Jesus is more powerful than any demon. You know, boys and girls, if Jesus is living in your heart, you never have to fear what demons can do to you. Well, right now, let's see what Ranger Jim has for us today.
Hi, boys and girls. Ranger Jim saying welcome to Nature Time. We're glad you can join us today. We're in Chattanooga, Tennessee with my friend Nature Dan. And Dan, we're glad to have you today. What do you have here?
Well, I got something really interesting. You look at these things right here in my hand, a lot of people say, what are those? Well, those are nuts, but not just any kind of nuts. These are beech nuts. And not just any kind of beech nuts. These came off of a beech tree that is a very special tree.
Well, now, knowing you, Dan, I know there's a story, so let's have the truth.
There is. And what happened was I got these from a property in Kentucky, in Pikeville, Kentucky, from a gentleman named Hatfield.
Not the Hatfield.
The Hatfield of Hatfield and McCoy's, that world-famous feud. And these trees and these fruit from the tree was what started that feud a long time ago.
Because they fell in one man's yard and the other man's pigs came. Amazing.
And they got all feuding over it. But the tree they come from is really a neat tree. It's sometimes called the ghost of the forest. Yeah, because it has these leaves, and the leaves are like this light brown, and they stay on the tree all through the wintertime. And it's real silvery bark and these leaves blowing, and it's just so beautiful. But my favorite part about the tree, the beech tree, it is the apartment house of the animal world.
Now, what do you mean by that? Apartment, this is where animals live.
Animals live, and all kinds of animals live on it. And in it, oh man, it gets hollow. That's one of the things about a beech tree. It gets hollow.
Characteristic of it, very early.
Got it. Really early on, it starts to get hollow. After about 12 inches in diameter, she starts to hollow out. And flying squirrels love to live in there, and they'll eat these things. And you got, tree frogs will live on them. And what's really neat is a tree frog is gray. What color is the bark of a beech tree?
Invisible.
That's right. They just disappear. Well, one time I saw one just out of the corner of my eye, caught a little bit of its belly, and I reached down and I grabbed it real quick, and I pulled it out, and you could see all that bright yellow down underneath it, and then you could see it.
Amazing. What about holes in the top? Would owls occupy that?
Oh yeah, when the trees get big, it's big enough for owls to start to occupy.
Now, I think I remember you telling me, we were talking before, that maybe the early pioneers used this tree well. Could you tell the boys and girls about that?
Well, beech trees, and also we had sycamore trees. Both of those trees would hollow out, and they could store some of the early crops in there. And that was a really good way of them being able to keep their crops dry and be able to store them in the wintertime.
So imagine that, boys and girls, if you could. These were trees that were growing into a hollow that they used as a silo.
Like as a silo,
Like the farmer
exactly.
used as a silo today. The early pioneers could store their corn and grain and things in there. That is just, Dan, thank you so much. That's so interesting for me to learn. Boys and girls, this is Ranger Jim telling you once again, don't forget to tell Jesus that you love him, because he really does love you.
Michelle, when you play that clarinet, I can just hear the joy.
You know, I have a lot of fun playing my clarinet, but Jesus wants to give us more than anything else, his everlasting joy.
That's right.
Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come a singing unto Zion, and everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come a singing unto Zion, and everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. They shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and mourning shall be away. Therefore the redeemed of the Lord shall return, and come a singing unto Zion, and everlasting joy shall be upon their heads. An everlasting joy, an everlasting joy, an everlasting joy shall be upon their heads.
Welcome to Talk Time. I'm here with Pastor John today. Hi, Pastor John.
Hey, good to be here, Miss Brenda.
Oh, it's good to have you here. I always enjoy you coming here because I learn so much.
That's right, and opening the Word of God is why we're here today, to answer these questions from important young boys and girls.
Yes, that's right. So let's just start off. We're going to pull
Okay.
the first question out of the basket.
Pink.
It says, if God is real, why can't we see him?
Well, you know, the Bible says in John 4, verse 23 and 24, God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. Now, sinful man cannot see a sinless God, but one day the Bible does give us the promise in Revelation chapter 21 that we will see God. We will dwell with him, we will be his people, and God himself will be with us and be our God. So when the day comes when we are no longer separated by sin, we'll get a chance to see God in all of his glory.
I'm looking forward to that
What a
day,
wonderful
aren't
day
you?
it's gonna be. That's
Yes.
right.
Okay, next question. I hate Sabbath because it is so boring. I can't wait till sundown when I can do things with my friends. Why can't Sabbath be more fun?
Well, you know, boys and girls, I have to ask your parents. They're probably responsible. Now, it depends on what they make you do.
You might
Now,
get some calls about this, Pastor.
It shouldn't be boring. As a matter of fact, there's a little booklet at the ABC called 52 Things to Do on the Sabbath. And if they run out of ideas in your family, just think, get that booklet, 52 Things to Do on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is a blessed time. And I think about the Sabbath as a relationship. And if you love the Lord, you love to spend time with him. A lot of times we think more about what to do after the Sabbath than what to do during the Sabbath. It's the best time to share with others, to go visit people, to go to nursing homes, to go out to homes of people that have no one to visit them and just say, I want to come and pray with you. It's good to go out in nature sometimes and learn about creation. It's good sometimes to go out and sit by the ocean, just listen to the ocean roar and hear God talk to you. It's a fabulous time. So if it's boring, it just simply means you're wasting time looking at the clock rather than using it to do something for God's honor and God's glory.
That's
a lot of things to do.
That's a good answer because, you know, if it's boring to them, they're not doing the right things,
Not doing
are they?
anything with it.
No.
Can you imagine sitting at a bus station every week for 24 hours doing nothing? It'd be boring waiting for the bus.
That's right. That's
right.
right. But you know what? I love Sabbath because it's the one time you can put away all your worries
That's right.
throughout the week. You might have had a horrible week. You might have problems. And you know what? You can put all that aside and
That's
just enjoy your time with Jesus.
Isaiah 58, verse 13 and 14 calls the Sabbath a delight. The holy of the Lord honorable and shall honor him. And all we have to do is stop doing our own things and
Right.
begin to minister for the Lord, and you'll find great joy in making somebody else happy on the Sabbath.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
a good answer. Okay, another question. Do you have to go to church to go to heaven?
Well, let me ask you a question. If you are a football player, do you have to play on the team? Okay? A lot of times people say, well, how little do I have to do and still be saved? And that's often really what's behind that question. But fellowship, you know, you're stronger when you're together. Think about being a sheep and think about being attacked by wolves. Now, a sheep by himself or herself can never defend itself against an angry wolf, even if it's only one. The reason why the Lord gave us the church is so we can stick together. As Isaiah 53 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. And so, but the beauty of that is the Lord says all the sheep could stick together. And here's a wonderful story. When I heard a story about a wolf that tried to jump into a sheepfold and attack the sheep. And they got so close together, they pressed their bodies together so their backs were just one against the next. And the wolf could not get in. He jumped into the fold, and their backs became a solid floor, and he ran in one side of the fold and out the other. Now, if it was just one sheep, he would have destroyed that sheep, because one sheep is no defense to a wolf. And so, boys and girls, the Lord doesn't want you to be defenseless against the wolves of the world or the devil. He wants you to go to church for the fellowship and for you to stick together so that when tough times come and the wolf try to attack you, you're all so close together, he comes in one side and goes out the next, and you're still safe.
That's wonderful. Now, what about the people, though, that may be physically not able to go to church? Maybe they're sick at home and they're, you know, maybe they're housebound, maybe they're in prison. They've given their heart to the Lord, but they can't go to church. What about the people that can't physically go to church?
Well, if you can't physically make it to church, that's one thing. You know, the Lord. That's why the Sabbath is there. We're talking about the question just before. We need to find out who they are. If they're in our neighborhood, take them some food or some flowers, or take them a copy of the sermon, or take your Bible and read, or like we did in the Florida hospital, we would go and sing just to people that we didn't know. A group of us went and we said, could we sing you a song? And man, we lit up their eyes, because they realized that Jesus comes to them when they can't go to where he is.
That's right.
And by the way, I want to just correct that. He's always everywhere, but the people of God come to them when they can come to the people of God.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you, Pastor John. That's all the time we have today. Boys and girls, if you have a question for Pastor John, just send it to me at Kids Time, and I'll make sure that you get your question answered. Because your questions are important to us, and your questions are important to Jesus.
Come home with a miracle like this, with healing.
I want to know what happened to Stephen.
Yes.
That's the miracle. Remember, his daddy said that if we could find Jesus, if we could find the disciples, that maybe Jesus could heal Stephen. And Stephen, do you remember he always had the seizures and was getting thrown on the ground and in the fire, and
he was terrible.
It was terrible. He couldn't speak, he couldn't hear. And I don't even think, Stephen, that you remember all that.
No.
So we ended up going in, we found the disciples, and your father begged them, please, please, you have to help my son. Well, the disciples came up and everybody was going to help him. Nobody was even thinking that anything was odd, and they were just saying that he was filled with demons, which was scary to us, but we knew, the whole time we knew that something like that had happened. And so the disciples came and they said a prayer, and they asked or told the demons to leave, and you know what happened? As soon as they said for them to leave, the demons threw Stephen down on the ground, and he started shaking so violently that it looked like his bones were going to break. It was the scariest.
Terrible. Oh,
Goodness. It was so terrible. I can't even tell you. I sat down and started crying, and I was crying so hard. But your dad never sat down.
Crying too.
Oh, it was so scary. And your dad never sat down. Your dad said, please, you have to help my son. And he was right there saying, you've got to help him. Somebody's got to help him. But the disciples, when I looked at them, they all looked afraid. It was almost like they thought at first it was going to be easy, and then they were afraid. And you could tell that no one knew what to do next. And the Pharisees and Sadducees were there, all the religious teachers, and they started yelling at the disciples. It was the awfulest thing.
What?
They started yelling at them, and it was like, and then nobody was thinking about Stephen at that point. He was laying on the ground and he was shaking. The religious teachers were screaming at the disciples, see, you can't help anybody. You're not helping anybody. You can't heal anybody. You are deceiving us. You're deceiving all the people. And then all of a sudden, everybody started yelling the same thing, that you're deceiving us, and you're a fake, and all those kind of things.
That's horrible.
It was worse than horrible, because the only only thing I was thinking of is, I want my boy to be healed. I want somebody to help him. And he was just laying there. And as all this was going on, it got worse and worse and louder, and everybody is screaming. The disciples look so confused and they just look scared almost. And all of a sudden, Jesus and 3 other disciples come down from the mountain. And when you looked at them, you know what the weirdest thing was? They actually looked like they had lights shining around them. Wow. It was just like it gave you chills. And they just looked lit up. And so your dad ran to them and said, "Please help my son." And Jesus looked up, and as he looked up, he looked at you. It was so amazing. He looked at you, and you were still shaking. It was so scary. And he said, kind of, "What's going on?" And everybody started yelling. The disciples started yelling. We tried to help him get these demons out, but the demons are mocking us, making fun of us. They're not even listening. And the Pharisees and Sadducees are yelling at Jesus that you are fake and all those kind of things. And as Jesus was looking at this whole scene, it was almost as if he understood exactly what was going on. And he looked at you and he said, "Come out of him," to the demons. And all of a sudden, I thought maybe that you would just stop. But all of a sudden you shook harder and harder. And it was just like, you know how, have you seen somebody that was just shaking and like spit and foam come out of their mouth and stuff? It was like that. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. And then nothing. Just laid there, and everybody thought he was dead. Even me. I couldn't even hardly breathe. I thought my whole life was over.
You must have been so scared. I would have been very frightened, weren't you?
It was so awful. I was so afraid, and I thought he was dead, and Jesus walked over, and as soon as he touched him, he got up. And do you remember what you said?
No.
You said, "Mom." And I couldn't even believe it. I've never heard your voice before. I've never heard him speak before. And your voice was there. You could hear me when I talked to you. And that, remember when he left? That just didn't happen.
Oh, the
and it was
joy
funny.
You must have felt.
Oh, you can't even know it. And it was amazing. Everybody just stood silent because Stephen stood up and just started talking.
Praise God.
It was so incredible.
That is so wonderful.
You know, I never thought that when we went in the first place, that Jesus would be able to completely heal him. And I know that this is still wild for you because you're looking at me like I don't even remember any of it. Is that right?
Yeah.
So Jesus came in, and when he came in and he called the demons out, it was as if the whole place got peaceful. Everything got peaceful. Nobody wanted to say anything. The Sadducees and Pharisees didn't say anything. The disciples didn't say anything. And they even said at one point, "Why is it that the demons didn't listen to us?" And I heard them kind of talking with Jesus. And he said, you know, with this kind of possession, this kind of demon, where it has somebody their whole life, it takes serious prayer and belief. And so what we were saying to everybody is that he looked around at the crowd. Jesus said he looked around at the crowd, and not one person had faith that this was actually going to happen. Even your dad came up and said, "If you can heal my son, I beg you to heal him." And Jesus said to him, if I can heal him, you just have to have faith. And your dad started crying because he said,
faith is a very essential thing.
Faith is essential, but how do you get it? And he said, "What if I don't have enough?" So he asked Jesus, "Please help me with my unbelief. Help me with the faith I don't have." And Jesus did, and then healed you. I love that.
That's incredible.
Isn't it incredible?
I'm so glad that he's healed, though.
Isn't it amazing? It's so amazing. It's so amazing.
I've got joy like an ocean in my soul. I've got joy like an ocean. I've got joy like an ocean. I've got joy like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like a fountain. I've got love like a fountain. I've got love like a fountain in my soul.
friends Elizabeth and Brittany, and they're here to help me tell you it's time for Miss Brenda's Book of the Day. And oh, what an exciting book, boys and girls. I have Secrets of the Sea, and it's by Colleen L. Reese. Having explored the forest and the canyon, Carrie and Andy Reynolds are off on another exciting adventure to the fascinating world of water. And in the process, they encounter creatures great and small that go slurp and gurgle and swish, walking catfish, frogs, turtles, and so many other living things. But all the while, they are learning lessons about Jesus. Doesn't that sound like a good book? Secrets of the Sea by Colleen L. Reese. Well, I have a couple of very special guests with me today I'd like you to meet. I have Elizabeth and Brittany. Hi, Elizabeth. Hi, Brittany. Elizabeth, can you tell me about what you do to share Jesus?
Well, I tell people about Jesus, and I love to do that.
You love to do that?
Yes.
Well, you told me that recently you talked with a carpet man about Jesus. What did you tell? How did that happen?
Well, I asked him if he went to church on Sunday, and he said yes. And, well, let's see.
So when you said Sunday, what did you say?
Why do you go to church on Sunday? And he said that he thought that the Lord wasn't too picky about that. And I said, yes, he is picky because he wrote it on a tablestone of rock. And, yeah.
That was a very good answer. Did you hear that, boys and girls? She said that the man told her that he didn't think the Lord was too picky about what day we worship. And she told him, what did you tell him again?
That he wrote it on a tablestone so it could stay forever.
That's right. And the Lord was pretty picky about that. That was a wonderful way to share Jesus. That's awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. Brittany, what do you do to share Jesus?
I share Jesus by taking these little butterflies and folding them up, and inside them I make cards.
Oh, can Miss Brenda see one of those? Let's see. Oh, that is really pretty. And I'll just hold that right out there so the camera can see it. Isn't that pretty? Beautiful. And you make these and color them, and then what do you write inside of them?
I write, like, we miss people in church.
When someone doesn't come to church, you send them one of these and say, we missed you at church?
There was this lady that hadn't been to church in a long time. So we folded up one of these butterflies and told her that we loved her and we missed her and we wanted her to come back to church. And we took it to our house. We stayed for a little bit. And then finally, she said that she would be back to church next week.
And did she come?
Not yet. Next week or next Saturday, she'll be back.
She'll be back. And you just keep praying for her, okay? Well, right now, I have some letters to read. Don't you love hearing the letters from the boys and girls?
Oh, yes.
I do, too. Let's see, I have one here from St. Lucia in the West Indies. And can you help me, Elizabeth, and hold that picture up for me, please? And let's see what this letter says. It says, Dear Miss Brenda, my name is Shannon, and I live in the beautiful island of St. Lucia. I'm 10 years old, and I enjoy watching Kids Time, especially the singing time. I share Jesus by going on prayer walks with my church and inviting people to come to church. P.S. Please send me the Kids Club lessons, please. Yours truly, Shannon. Well, Shannon, thank you for the letter, and I will make sure that we get you signed up for the Kids Club lessons and keep sharing Jesus. That's a wonderful way to share Jesus. I have another one here from, this is a hard city to say, Schenectady, New York. I hope I said that right. And can you hold that? We've got another picture. Ooh, I love it, boys and girls, when you send me all those pictures with your letters. And this says, Dear Miss Brenda, I love Kids Time, and I watch it whenever I can. Please send me an activity book and also 2 more for my sisters and the Bible studies, too, please. I'm 9 years old. I have 2 cats and 1 dog. God bless you. Love, Elizabeth. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And and I see you've got an armful of something in your hands there, don't you? All right, we have another one. Oh, this one's from Australia. Let's see who's writing us from Australia. And this says, Dear Miss Brenda, my name is Jacob Roy. I'm 4 years old, and I'm turning 5 soon. I would like to join Kids Club, please. Here's a picture that I drew, It is of Jesus' cross, his tomb, his creation, and his resurrection. I would love to receive the Bible lessons. Thank you, Miss Brenda. Love, Jacob. And oh, look what Jacob drew me. Drew me a nice picture right here of the cross and a sign and Jesus rising from the dead. And what a wonderful artist you are. Thank you, Jacob, for that. All right, let's see. How about an email? This says, Dear Miss Brenda, how are you? I'm Charles from India, living in Kuwait, and I'm 7 years old, and I love Kids Time. I enjoy watching the Bible stories, and I'm learning so much from Ranger Jim. By seeing Kids Time, I share Jesus in my school. By helping my friends, I share my books, and if they're sick or hurt, I take them to the school clinic. And I always try to obey my parents and being kind to everyone. I think I'm sharing Jesus. Do you think so too? Yes, I do. And it says, I like Kids Club, please, and one for my cousin who is in India. Thank you very much. Lovingly, Charles. Well, Charles, thank you for the email. And yes, you are definitely sharing Jesus, and you're being kind to your friends too. That's good. This says, Dear Miss Brenda, my name is Emily, and I sure love Kids Time. My favorites are praise time and the sharing time when you read the letters. I share Jesus by singing and playing my violin in many churches and other events. Love, Emily. Well, thank you, Emily, for your email. Boys and girls, I want to encourage you to always have a song in your heart, always be willing to be kind and loving. That is a wonderful way to share Jesus, isn't it? Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank Elizabeth for being with us. I want to thank Brittany. I want to encourage you to keep sharing Jesus, and boys and girls, and I want to encourage you to do the same thing. And do you know why? That's right, it's Kids Time to share Jesus.
Children all over the world love 3ABN's Kids Time programs, and now they can have their very own DVD set featuring Miss Brenda and the Kids Time Singers. Each volume contains 4 Kids Time programs, plus a bonus of 4 Kids Time Praise programs, and you can get them individually or as a set. And check out this extra soft Maxwell mascot toy. He's 12 inches long and perfect for ages 3 and up. Or how about a bright yellow Kids Time t-shirt? They're colorful, eye-catching, and come in children and adult sizes too. Call 618-627-4651 Monday through Thursday during regular business hours, or visit our store at 3abn.org.
We were a group of women outside the city gate by the river at a place of prayer. Lydia, a dealer in purple cloth from Thyatira, was also there. 2 men came along and started to speak to us and asked to join us in prayer. We later learned that they were Paul and Silas. The Lord opened Lydia's heart to heed Paul's message. She and all the members of her household were baptized. Another day, Paul and Silas were on their way to a place of prayer. They were met by a female slave who had a spirit in her that could predict the future. She earned a lot of money for her owners by fortune-telling. She followed us and shouted at us. This was disrupting, and so Paul ordered the spirit out of her. When her owners realized that their chance of making money was gone, they dragged Paul and Silas to the authorities, and they were put in prison.
At around midnight, these 2 very positive prisoners named Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. The rest of us were listening to them. Suddenly there was a violent earthquake and the prison shook. All the prison doors flew open and everyone's chains came loose. The jailer woke up, saw all the doors open, and drew his sword to kill himself. He thought all the prisoners had escaped, but Paul assured him and shouted that he should not harm himself. The jailer called for lights, rushed in and lay in front of them, trembling. the jailer accepted Jesus Christ, and his whole family was baptized.